There we go.
Hey, I have audio.
Yeah, it was my phone. I broke it.
I know, we're good.
We're good. So
Good to see
this
you,
is.
man.
I want. It's good to see you as well. I want everyone to know that this was your idea. So again, I take no
Yes.
responsibility for any of this. But
Well, I just
I.
I, I just had such a good time the other day, and I was late showing up, and I feel like I owe you now anyway.
Well, this is
So we
perfect.
should.
This is
So
all
now
working in
we're
my favor.
now we're best friends for life.
Perfect. So let's. How are we feeling? How are we feeling about this trailer? We have a few people. These are my buddies. Andrew and Richie are in
Oh,
here. There's my
good.
wife. There's
What's
my
up,
wife.
boys?
I want
See if I can
to.
see.
I don't know if you want to shoot the shit for a little bit while we wait for more people, but we can also just. This is going to post on both of our feeds afterwards, so people can watch it whenever.
Hey, good.
Yeah. So let's do it. How are you feeling about Superman right now with this new trailer?
Doing great. I think it's great. I
Yep.
Yeah, I have there's a lot of great stuff in there. I just overall just the energy is
Yeah.
so positive, right? Like it's such a return to that John Williams kind of energy,
Yes.
you know.
But not
Yeah.
only that, it's like that's what Superman is. That's what he's all about. He's always been about that, and it feels like there's just been a retreat from that for a while, like an embarrassment. I remember, like I every time I would like I meet Mark Waid at a con, and we would just talk about it, and I'm like, am I crazy, or does it feel like DC is sort of kind of embarrassed of what Superman is? They're trying to steer him more towards Batman because that's always been Batman has always been more popular. We talked about this, like you were saying about the comics. It's always Batman at the top of the list and Superman second. And there's that feeling. I can see how like a beam pusher or somebody like looking at the numbers is saying like, well, maybe that's because it's people just like Batman more, and Superman needs to be more like Batman.
Totally. I can definitely see like executives or numbers people like looking at, okay, well, statistics show that we get this better click through on these kind of videos, or we get, this, so we need to have, and just taking the wrong lessons from those kinds of
Right.
things. The way to make Superman like really like to make a Superman story sing is not to make it a Batman story,
Right. Right.
or to make it like, you know, X-Men, whatever the latest hit thing is.
Yeah.
Like, don't try to shove it into being something else, because then now you're failing everyone.
Yeah. You have to embrace it.
Yeah. So
And not only that, there's plenty to embrace if you're willing to look for it.
oh my God, yeah, especially
Yeah.
now. I mean, like, when has there been a more relevant time to have somebody like Superman, like, so, somebody who has absolute power, but who is completely incorruptible.
Right.
That was, yeah, that's something that we have to have right now. I need to believe that it's okay to have great power, or even to seek great power,
Mm.
as long as you're wielding it with like absolute compassion and
Yeah.
humility. That needs to be
Yeah.
possible. I mean, I know people like that. I know people who are more strong and capable and wise, and they use it to help others rather than for their own betterment or enrichment. Like
Yeah.
I have to
Andrew,
believe
Andrew,
that.
I see what you're saying. Decency is like exactly. Decency and humility, I think was that the I can't remember if we were talking about it, but humility is a great word.
Yeah, compassion and humility are the ones that I always go to. There was a panel that I did a long time ago. It was during COVID, and there was a like a Superman panel. It's like a convention, like an online convention in Brazil, I believe.
Right.
And I was on this virtual panel with some other great people, like other people who were doing big stuff with Superman at the time. Like Tom Taylor was on that panel. He was doing Superman Son of Kal-El at the time.
Yeah.
I don't think Grant was on that one. Grant was not on that one. But there were a couple of other Superman editors. There are Superman artists, and we were all talking about it. And at one point, there was a question by the moderator, like if you had to sum up Superman in one word. And I wish I had that question back again, because at the time, like the kind of the buzzword that everyone was saying at the time was hope,
Mm.
and hope's a good choice. And I kind of jumped on that bandwagon with everyone else. But going back, as great as hope is, that's not actually the thing.
Yeah.
Um, for me, it's somewhere between compassion and humility. And I'm choosing two words rather than one, because the actual singular thing that I'm actually thinking of is a thing that for which there's not really an English word that quite captures it. But it's somewhere in between those two. Like compassion wielded with humility. That's what Superman is, more so than his powers or any kind of physical design or anything in his history is about that feeling.
Right.
I talked to Grant Morrison about this at great length in Glasgow. He and I hung out in Glasgow for a little bit, and we were talking. He took me to this awesome pub in Glasgow, and we were just getting lit and talking about Superman, just a couple of nerds, and
The dream. Living
it
the
was
dream.
it was so great. It was such an awesome hang. We talked about Superman at great length. He he kind of talked out of school about some stuff behind the scenes, which was really fun. But he also, I told him about that panel and how I kind of wanted my paper back, and like this is my answer now.
Right.
And Grant said, "Indomitable" was his word.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Grant showing
so
off again.
no, well, it really shows Grant's larger than life view of Superman. Like he talks about how he talks about how just beyond like he's super everything. He's not just super strong. He is
Right.
super smart, super compassionate, super powerful, super whatever. And he talks about his storytelling in that way too. Like he says, when people talk about how Superman's too hard to write, um, Grant's answer to that is that Superman deals with all the same crap as the rest of us. He just deals with it on a crazy multiversal kind
Right.
of scale.
Yeah.
Like the
You
in-laws,
amp it up to 11, basically.
yeah, the in-laws come to visit, or you're walking your dog, but instead of walking around the block, you're walking him around the galaxy.
Right.
Like everything is just bigger, and
Right.
that's kind of his everything. Everything in that book in All Star is so it just feels so
Right.
enormous and hard to even conceive of. Everything is so big, so that fit Grant's vision for Superman. But for me, it's compassion and humility.
Yeah. Are you getting all-star vibes from like James Gunn's movie right now? Like I know that was like a
Yeah.
big influence for he
Oh
talked
my
about
God.
that one a lot.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's only one moment in which that's not the case. And I think you know what it is, but the rest of it, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I mean, there was what was the line in there? There was something about you're defined by well, okay. There's the opening, like the title page practically inside the All Star book says it's not what we say but what we do that defines us.
Yeah.
And there's a line that
Do you think I'm starting when you say it's not who I am underneath, it's what I do that defines me. I'm starting to think Grant may have stolen that from Batman Begins. Did did Batman have an
yeah.
influence on Superman? Is this just the never-ending battle of Batman versus Superman constantly?
No, no. That's just a very superheroic kind of
Right.
thing.
Really, you could any
It's,
superhero could be quoted as saying
yeah,
if nobody had seen Batman Begins, you could say like Superman said that or
I mean,
Spider Man said
I mean,
that.
you could go back to Elvis and say a little less conversation, a little more action, please. You could say that Elvis is actually the first Superman or whatever.
Right, right.
Um, but no, it it kind of paraphrased that line from the beginning of All Star. It said something like, "It's our choices, our actions that define us," or something like
Yeah,
that. Something about not what we say, but what we do that matters. And there's something I can't remember the exact phrase in this trailer, but it's in there.
yeah,
So I mean, that is all Grant. I mean, again, it wasn't Grant that invented the idea, but that was a clear influence from All Star. There was there's the super robots who look like they should, from that thing. Like there's this Silver Age kind of energy with
yes,
crypto and the robots and everything else that kind of defines Grant's take.
yeah.
And James Gunn has said that he's a big admirer of Grant's work and everything.
No, I think what's great about it too is like with Superman, and I mean we talked about this in our episode. We're both massive fans of the Donner film, as everyone should be. But I would say one of the things that has maybe held Superman films back up until now is that adherence. I think what was great about Donner's film at the time was like he made it real. Like he brought Superman into the real world. You'll believe a man can fly. When you watch that
Right.
movie, you're like, it's New York City, it's Metropolis, but like, oh, there's the Statue of Liberty, right? Like it's not it's kind of Metropolis, but it's New York City. But everything there is like you brought Superman into the real world because the idea was we want audiences to believe in what's happening. We want audiences to feel this is really verisimilitude. This is actually happening, and I think Zack Snyder's take was almost, as far as worldview is concerned, it was almost like taking that more like realistic worldview of like what would really happen if like an alien being all powerful came to Earth. How would people really react? How would the government really react? In a lot of ways, that reality has both been great and it's kind of held Superman back. And as far as like live action films are concerned, so what's really exciting seeing this, and this was in the first trailer, but also kind of confirmed in this trailer, is just how nuts it is. Like just how bonkers it is, because there's so much potential there for great comic book action that we really haven't gotten a chance to see on the big screen. We haven't really gotten a chance to see in Superman land, at least. We haven't gotten to see like a real like comic accurate Metropolis and things like that. So that's really exciting to know that, because there's so much potential to the stories, like the comics, stuff that you've written, stuff that others have written, but even like we barely even touched on that cosmic element of Superman going to other galaxies and things like that. So
That's
it's
the
very
thing.
exciting.
Yeah, that's something that I've always felt strongly about too. Like when people got all butthurt about taking American Way out of the catchphrase, I'm like, man, it's not even about Earth.
Right?
Like it's like let alone America. Like the
If
ideals that
Superman goes to another planet and says, "I'm about truth, justice, and the American way," they're like, what?
right.
Huh?
There's in fact in House of L, that thing from the future, like somebody's like questioning whether he ever existed.
Yeah.
And she says something about like truth, justice, and some place we never heard of or something like that. That's kind of
Right,
a fool's
right.
like whatever that stupid place is
I
called.
finally, I read it, by the way, in between our conversation and now.
Oh,
I
thanks.
read it. It was great. Loved it.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's anyway, man, it's I don't know. I love the energy of this trailer, and I love that I love the larger than life elements to it that do remind me of Grant's work. Even like the kaiju type stuff you see, it just feels like a Grant story.
Yeah.
Um, Selfishly, it was cool to see some stuff from my own book in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
When you see Superman and Lois kind of like revolving in the air, that's right out of one of my stories, and that was really cool to see that moment. God, what else? I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When I mean, I understand that we don't have the market cornered on camouflage uniforms, but when we saw the invasion happening, there's a scene where we see like an invading military
Yeah.
force invading a foreign country, and Superman intervenes and
Yes. We're now getting a little bit more of like, oh, okay, this is where we're going story wise. Some
prevents yeah
things.
prevents the war according to
Yeah.
him. And when Lois asks about whether he cleared it with the president, it showed Lex Luthor.
That's people were pointing that out.
Do you think Lex is going to be president in this movie?
I think he's going to have political aspirations. Let's say that. We haven't
So that's a no then. You don't think he's president?
I'm going to say no, because I think it's too much to start with him as a president. For a general, like,
Is it?
I'm
In
thinking of it from a general.
2025?
I think with the general audience, people might come into that saying like, "Wait, Lex is the president of the
Oh,
United States."
I mean, yeah.
So I think
That will
I
happen. If
think
he's president in this movie, people are
I
going to notice.
well, here's what I think. I think by the end of the film, we may see something like he's like, maybe president, or some like that'll be our tease for the next one. But I think because we haven't seen him surrounded by a lot of political stuff right now, we see a lot of LexCorp, we see a lot of him in corporations and buildings and his giant tower looking over Metropolis.
We do.
I think we're gonna see some political aspirations, and I think James is smart. He knows this material. Like he knows his shit. So he knows that Lex eventually is gonna make his way there. I think we're gonna see some teases, but I think that's a fun little I think it's a fun Easter egg, and I think when they were putting that trailer together, they knew people like us were gonna be like, "Did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah.
He's gonna be the president." He's. I think it's too much to start this new like we are kind of rebranding. We're rebooting. We're starting a whole new universe, and I think if you throw an audience in who's most familiar with Lex is like Gene Hackman bumbling underground, and suddenly it's like, wait, when did Lex become the president of the United States? How did that happen? And it's almost too much. Now I could be completely wrong. It could be like, oh shit, he is. He's the president.
The fact that Rick Flag Sr. is the friggin' second. So okay, so when I first saw Lex and when he said president, I was like, oh my god, are they really going to do that? But I was like, well, it's kind of weird to see him like in a LexCorp building if he's the president, like surrounded by like corporate toadies, and then later see him walking around himself with a gun, like in the Fortress of Solitude, if he's the
Yeah.
president. But
There's too
it
much. You know
does
what? There's too
it
much
does
to
kind of
have. Like it's like he's gonna have to like. He's too much of a public. Like he's already a public figure. Obviously, he's a big businessman. But I feel like if he's the president, there's too much. Not
too
now.
much. There's too much. What? Look at where we are in real life.
That's why I stopped talking. I was like, well,
Well,
maybe.
actually,
I was like, because he's got to get permission. Well, maybe he doesn't
right.
have to get permission to do
I
what he
mean,
wants.
the Secretary of Defense is that dude, and like and he's just unapologetically, I don't know, man. I think he might be. I
It's
mean, it could go either way. I think it's like
yes,
50-50. They could either be playing us with the trailer or it could be in the film. And either way, I got to respect their moxie because they knew what they were doing with
yeah,
that bit in the trailer. And honestly, I mean, what are they afraid they're going to lose the MAGA vote? I mean, like
yeah.
Ben Shapiro already lit him up for the last trailer, saying he was
But Ben
oh, we got a we
Shapiro,
got a woke we
he's
got a woke
totally.
Marxist Superman.
He can complain as much as he wants on his podcast, but he's going to see that movie, and then he's going to make a video about how much he hates the movie.
Exactly. See,
And he's going
exactly.
to
So
be
who
like,
cares?
Superman, the suit is too blue. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I think it's a tease. I think we're going to see I think we're going to see a President Lex, not in this movie. But I also want to talk about the idea of the idea James is positing and officially putting out there into the ether now by saying, okay, Superman in this film has been it's not an origin story. He's relatively new to the world, but he's been there for a little while. He's been doing his thing for probably a couple years now. It's like not a year 2 story, maybe like a year 3 or 4 story. So he's been in there for a little while, and it's based on kind of his vibe with Lois at the beginning. There's a feeling of like he's very cocky. He's very sure of himself. Like, I've been doing this for a while. Like, I stopped a war. What do you like? Why are people complaining about this? Like, it's a feeling of he's operated unchecked, and now there is a question mark around it. And Lex is going to lead the charge for. He's going to lead the charge for the people asking those questions. Like, why does this guy get to do everything unchecked? Is an interesting idea here. I think Zack Snyder tried to touch on it a little bit in Batman v Superman, but I think we're going to see something very, very interesting as far as like what is Superman's obligation to the world? Who is he answerable to? Like, who does he answer to? Like, who decides what is right and what is wrong? And what happens when this guy who can basically operate unchecked with all the power in the world make those decisions? No offense to Zack Snyder, but I'm very, very interested to see James Gunn's version of that conversation. But I
Yeah,
wonder what your thoughts are on that.
well, I don't know. There's certainly similarities. Like you see Superman in cuffs and stuff like that, and he's in like the superhero gulag and all that. So there are elements of that, but there's still, I don't know. It still kind of has that DC Comics energy as opposed to what if Superman were really real.
Yeah.
Like there was kind of that gritty reboot thing that I'm ready to be done with in this particular case. And that's not what's here though. Like it borrows some of those ideas, but it doesn't feel gritty at all. It feels very colorful and like the energy is what you want it to be.
Yeah.
I think the relationship with Lois is breath of fresh air. It's nice to, I mean, I know they, in the Snyderverse, they also had a Lois who knew who he was and everything. But I mean, they got there, right?
Yeah.
They got to the place where she knew who he was. But I don't
I
know.
always felt like
Just
that
the energy now, though, the energy in this one seems really different. Like really, it's just a breath of fresh air.
I think the problem is, and I remember, and my buddy Richie, he's in here right now, but I remember us talking about it. There was the scene near the beginning of Batman v Superman where like Lois is in a bathtub and the water's cold and she's like depressed or going through some kind, and he comes in and the lighting is all gray and it's weird and their vibe is very weird. It feels like an emotionally abusive relationship, and I remember just feeling like this feels very, very icky. And Superman's vibe in that movie was like he only cared about Lois. Like Lois was his connection to humanity. Like I'll save Lois, and then by extension, whoever happens to be near her. But
Yeah,
I think what I like,
I admit I did not take anything emotionally abusive from any of that, but it's that all felt fine. I thought to me it felt like very much in keeping with that for the story he wanted to tell
yeah,
through from movie to movie to movie. He needed Lois to be his tether. So I get that. Like
yeah,
that was he just really loved Lois, and that was his whole connection. And through all the whole death and rebirth and stuff later that was supposed to be coming with her and Batman, that whole thing, that was all part of it. So I get what they were planting seeds for later. But this, like man, like one of my favorite parts of this
Oh,
film, or
Richie,
excuse me.
yeah, Lois. Apparently, Lois is going to know. Like they're gonna have already been in a relationship
Oh yeah.
for a couple months at the start. Richie. So
Yeah, oh, somebody's asking. I see.
yeah, my buddy's commenting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, like at the very beginning, yeah, they're talking like, yeah, I don't know, the energy when they were kind of joking around, like, you gonna do an interview with me as Superman? He's like, yeah, sure.
yeah,
Like, and he kind of leans forward and says, Miss Lane, and that really
yeah.
fun Superman kind of tone. Like they're both kind of in on the joke. I don't know. It's just great, 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 great energy. Like that, and that dude completely sold me on himself. The actor, I mean, sold me as Superman and as Clark Kent both in that
Yeah.
moment. I admit the only my only gripe on the whole thing is when Lois kind of starts questioning his actions when he stopped that invasion, and she kind of calls him out on like, there might be repercussions from this, and he's like, "What do you?" He gets real defensive
Yes.
in a way that I found extremely out of character. Now,
Mm,
again, it's just a trailer, and we're seeing everything by definition out of context. Um, but whether we're talking about my run on Action Comics or Grant Morrison's run, or honestly any of the runs that I hold in highest regard, I've never seen Clark be quite so flappable
right.
as he was right then, where he's like, she really kind of shook him by asking, like, how dare you ask me? Like, what do you mean? I just save people. How is it any more complicated than that? Where I think Superman would actually take that with more contemplation and self-reflection. And I mean, he respects Lois
Mm,
so much, and Lois, in her way, is as powerful as Superman. She is just so dogged in her pursuit of the truth. She will bring the fight to anybody in the pursuit of the truth. He respects that completely. He has greatest respect for her as a journalist. And if the Christopher Reeve Superman were to take that kind of criticism from Lois, he would kind of take it with his head down and his chin in his hand, like,
yeah.
huh? Not that
Yeah.
he, not that he would say, "Oh my God, I made a huge mistake," but he was like, here's why I did that. And I don't. I want a Superman that shows me the way. That not somebody that suffers from all the same doubt and makes all the same dumb mistakes that I make or gets pissed the way that I do. I want somebody who like shows me the way, you
Yeah.
know. So I thought he was a little too shook and kind of angry in that moment in a way that I found a little
A
unflattering.
few people
But
a few people have mentioned this online. Like there's been a debate about like, why was he like getting all snippy with Lois and how do I feel about it?
got real
And
buzzers there for a minute.
right. And I personally like I honestly I love it. And I think part of why I love it so much is because we don't see that often with
Yeah.
we don't see a Superman typically, and this is why I think it's brilliant and why it's a great idea to open the trailer with it. The expectation we're setting up is like this is a Superman who makes mistakes, and not in a like I murdered somebody or I destroyed an entire city fighting Zod and not saving anybody kind of mistakes, but like personal mistakes. He's growing, he's still young, and he might not always make the right decision. And as far as I'm curious, like as a Superman storyteller, you've told some of the best Superman stories I've ever read, and getting inside these characters' heads, like you're the guy, you're one of a handful of people who are doing that right now. But I'm curious, like as far as a character journey for you, like do you see the merit? Do you think there is merit to having a Superman who? Because I think that conversation is going to happen closer to the start of the movie. I don't think that's something that's going to happen at the end. I think the incident they're describing, I think the conflict that he interferes in that causes all of this mayhem is really going to be the inciting incident of the film. Like, I think it's going to kick off everything.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. I think that's the case too. It's just his reaction is the only thing. I think it's honestly, I think the whole thing with him, like saving lives, stopping a war, doing all that stuff, that is just on its face the good thing,
Mm.
without too much thought about what could happen next. And then the events of the film all spin out of that. I think that's a great take. I
Yeah.
think it's a great way to go. It's only his reaction. And in fact, as we're talking,
Just the getting, like, raising his voice and getting upset.
yeah, he just gets
Yeah.
he gets almost like childishly pissed for
Yeah.
for just a second. Um, and again, in the context of the film, it could be great. And
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much voice to it. But actually, there's
No,
a
no, but I think
as
that's a
we're
fair,
talking
like,
though.
yeah, you brought that up, and I'm like, I think it's a fair critique. And like I said, other people have mentioned it too. Like, is this going too far? Is it too out of character for Clark and
You know,
Superman?
there's a moment in actually I've been pulling it up while we've been talking here. I wrote a scene that is not unlike this, where there's been tensions rising between Atlantis and the governments of the surface world here.
Right.
They're looking for this Genesis fragment. It's like this mineral that has crazy power, and they're trying to harness it. And this thing fell to Earth on a ship that landed in the ocean. So now Atlantis has it, and some like one of the governments of Earth tried to take it, and it's this big thing. It's like an arms race,
Right.
and the like the U.S. Navy and the Atlantean forces are about to duke it out, and Superman and John and Kara come down, and Superman like they start firing on each other, and then Superman does this thing where I I make the whole Superman as Moses thing real clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Superman like passes between them
Yeah.
and like makes these gigantic waves and
He
uses
ices the Red Sea,
yeah
basically.
he opens the seas and like makes this huge chasm and freezes it in place so that they can't reach each other
Mm.
and prevents either side from firing on the other. And then let's see, I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
I can't. Can I spin it? Can I? Before I turn this whole thing off, can I turn my camera
I
around?
I think you can. Hold
See
on. Let's see.
if this
Yeah,
works.
yeah. If you,
Ah,
there you go.
all right. So let's see. So he stops them and he goes down underneath the sea and he goes to get the fragment himself and Aquaman's down there. He's like, if you do this, it'll change things between us. So then he takes the thing and leaves. And as he leaves, Kara is like, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And he says, it's done, Kara. She said, you shouldn't have done it. What should we have done then? I don't know. Not that. I get it. They were making a mistake, but it's not our place to decide what the fragment's worth. This won't stop them.
Hmm.
And he says, ordinarily I'd agree, but without the fragment, they'll have no reason to kill each other. And then she says, this isn't over. There'll be consequences. And then something else, there's an
Yeah.
interruption. They hear something back at the fortress and they got to go save someone else's life.
Right.
So, but that was the whole thing where he kind of got called out and Kara's like, you did a wrong thing. And he's like, it's done. She's
Yeah.
like, it's a
Yeah.
mistake. It's to lead to more problems.
Like, maybe.
He explains himself and then it's kind of, they move on. So there's still a conflict, but it's by grownups. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's
No,
kind of
I get what you're saying. I think, and this is kind of what I mentioned to you too. I think where Superman is, certainly in the War World saga, where you've taken him, and in the comics right now, he's a family man. I mean, he's been around the block a few times, you know. And I'm very intrigued by the idea of a Superman, not a young, not super young, not super naive, but a Superman who hasn't quite gotten there yet, who is kind of like, why can't like, I saved people. People were gonna die. Like I get that. And maybe part of it is I love some of my all-time. We were talking about my favorite movies, Lord of the Rings trilogy. My other favorite trilogy is Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise trilogy. Do you know this?
Oh, I do. I never saw the third one, but
They're
yes.
great. Well, I was going to say the third movie is very focused on a committed relationship in peril, is how I would describe it. And there are a lot of amplify that kind of debate between Clark and Lois by 1,000 in terms of intensity. And that's kind of the vibe. But I love that. I mean, this is just me talking as like a film fan, and like I love movies about relationships, and I love movies where the relationships are not necessarily
perfect,
clean and supportive.
Yeah.
But there is good stuff. I want to give you an example and see if this kind of helps maybe open the doors a little bit to be kind of like, oh, okay, I see that. One of my all-time favorite movies. Another one is Rocky, the first Rocky, the special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I adore that movie. Rocky is he's a deeply flawed human being, and he's a what do you call it? He's kind of a bruiser, basically. Like, he's not perfect, but he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. That's the whole point. He's the boxer with the heart of gold. There is a great one of my favorite scenes in that movie is like Rocky has been kind of like a lot of the conflict in him is internal. He spent a lot of time being like made fun of, kind of pushed around, shoved around, taken for granted, the whole movie. And he gets to this point where Mickey, Burgess Meredith, also the Penguin, which trilogy? It's a Before Sunrise trilogy by Richard Linklater. It stars Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. I love it so much. But anyway, back to Rocky. Mickey has basically just like every time he interacts with Rocky, he's like, "You're a bum, you're an idiot," and da 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 da. And then Rocky gets this chance to fight Apollo Creed, and suddenly he's a superstar. And Mickey shows up at his apartment and is like, "You're gonna need a manager, right? I'm just saying." Suddenly he changes his tune, and Rocky's onto him. He's like, "Dude, it's like," he's kind of like not saying it, but the subtext is like, "The fight's set, leave me alone, go away. I don't want to, like, I know what you're up to." And then he's like, I needed you before. You never talked to me. Why not? Like, or you never gave me a chance. And Mickey finally leaves, and Rocky just goes on this like rant. He's like, "What? You don't like my apartment? Like, it stinks." And he just like, we've not seen him unleashed, but it's everything. Like, "I hate this place. This place stinks. Nobody cares about me. I'm going to lose this fight. It's going to be terrible." And it's like this emotional outpouring of everything he's held in. And he kind of just needs to get it out of his system. And then the next shot is outside the apartment or outside the townhouse. And he comes out, and we don't hear the conversation, but we hear Bill Conti's amazing score, that piano. And he goes up to Mickey, and you see there's a reconciliation and an agreement to work it out. But I think that moment, you've got to have that breakdown. And for me, seeing this trailer and seeing Superman kind of have that, like, "Oh, people are going to die," feels like we know there's going to be a reconciliation. And that's what I love too, is like Lois is it's hard to figure out like what's Lois's place sometimes in the stories. And I think Warworld Saga did a brilliant job of involving her in the conversation, but sometimes it's like Lois in the midst of just this insanity and stuff. I joked about like it's kind of like Godzilla movies where like the humans are just secondary to whatever the monsters are doing. They just kind of stare and they're like, "Ah." And sometimes Lois ends up being that in the Superman stories where she's kind of like, "All right, well, I hope he doesn't get hurt," like, things
Right.
like that. And I think there's going to be a real exciting way for Lois to be emotionally involved in this new film that we
Oh, for
haven't
sure.
seen before.
I am quite confident that Lois will be treated with great respect in this story.
I think, and
And
it's cool, and I love that she's the one who's going to put, like, it feels more, maybe it feels more right to me to see him get that angry because it's Lois pushing him. Lois is the one
well,
pushing him to that.
yeah, I was thinking about other moments where he does get all pissed like that, and the ones that come to mind are like from my own story. It's when one of the twins is
Yeah.
killed, and he gets real upset then, obviously. And then one that I remember from Grant's run was when Pa Kent dies, and he's across Smallville somewhere, and he's like, "I can save him. I can do
Yeah.
anything."
Yeah.
Ah, and he's just like yelling as he like tears as fast as he's ever
And
gone. Like he's literally
again, he's there.
burning.
That's a younger
Yeah,
Superman too. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. So honestly, in the context of the whole story, I trust James Gunn.
Yeah.
And everything else I've seen in this trailer is dope. I think it's cast extremely well. I love all the other characters that are in it. I think it's really cool that he's not just stacking us with, all the guys whose books sell the
Right.
best. That's like he chose
Guy
he
Gardner
chose Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner,
with the
Hawkgirl.
haircut. With the haircut.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you got it. I mean, God, you got to have that.
Yes.
And so I saw somebody complaining about that. I'm like, dude, what do you want? Like,
Right.
it's Guy Gardner. That's like his identity. So
Right.
anyway, yeah, no, it looks amazing. It's so cool to see elements of the Donner stuff without being slavish
Yeah.
to it. Like it's, you still see like the crystalline fortress. I love how it turns to the sun and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love all the tech inside. I love that they gave some personality to the robots. I love crypto being all through this thing.
You know.
And
But
just the energy. Yeah.
it hurt me, and I know. I mean, we had that shot in the first trailer of Superman like basically like as the soldier, the robot is dying and he's holding its hand and very clearly upset, and we had the engineer just taking them all out
Right.
in that insane action sequence. But also, I was like, oh no, this is gonna hurt.
Well,
This is gonna
I took out Kellex. It's not like
it's
the nice thing about Kill.
and that hurt
The
too.
nice
It
thing
hurt.
I know.
Why would you do that to me, Philip?
Because he's a robot, bro. It's gonna come back.
It's fair. It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But you know what? Let me have that emotional beat of like I can let me get like worked up, and then in the next movie it can be the search for Spock.
No, it was really fun. Like it was like yeah, you got that moment of like, oh my god, Kellex is dead, and then later you got to see Kara. That also has helped establish Kara as like the smartest one in the room all the time.
Yeah.
Because Kara honestly is the most Kryptonian of all the Kryptonians. Like she's the only one who actually was
Yeah,
there
she
and lived there
knew. She
and
grew up
knew
there.
knew people and like lost everyone she ever knew. So and she's like the matriarch of the family as I see it. And even if she's younger here, she's the one who actually knew that place. So I try to treat Kara with a lot of respect. And so when they were fixing up Kellex, I got to show her like speaking Kryptonian to him and like kind of
Yeah.
talking, speaking the code and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. I looked up the IMDb and it says that Supergirl's in this.
That's what I saw too. That doesn't
So
surprise me either. And how like here so we're living kind of in an age where I feel like I I really love James's approach to this because, and we're going to see, I mean, ultimately we're going to see it. We don't know yet. We haven't seen the film, so we're not going to know until we see the product and can judge for ourselves. But what I've really loved about James's approach to this is I think right now, the Marvel, the cinematic universe at least, there have been a lot of them. And I think you can see in some of the responses to the films and the box office to the films that audiences are feeling a little like it's this ongoing conversation. Is it oversaturated? Star Wars too. Star Wars is the same thing. Like, has there been too much? Are we hammering these franchises into the ground? Um, I love James's philosophy of like, let's get the script right first. Let's get the script solid. Because what happens with these sometimes is they'll be writing it literally on the day, or you'll film this whole thing and then a third act will be completely rewritten, like in the middle of production. And James's approach has been, the script is king. We've got to get that right and go from there. And it's made it really exciting. But also, I love his approach to like, what I don't remember what he calls like cameo porn, or like, in the movies we're now used to like, oh, it's a Captain America movie, but there's Thor and there's an appearance by Iron Man and so and so, and bringing in the characters organically and seeing how they interact. And I'm hopeful Kara will be brought in that kind of manner. Yeah, I agree. After Endgame, it does feel like after Endgame, it kind of was like that was a natural series finale, and now we're kind of waiting to see like, all right, where are we going from there? But I'm super curious to see what this DC universe is going to look like, especially in this era of like people are now kind of like, all right, we've seen the team ups, and now it's kind of passe. So it's passe. Did I say that right? Passe, passe.
say maybe.
Yeah, passe. Passe. I feel like passe is more exotic. I feel like people are going to be more impressed if I say it that way, or they'll just be like, "No, you're an idiot. It's passe." But what do you think of that? Like, how are you excited? Like, I mean, you were in this world, and for you, like, you were right. I mean, you're writing the Hulk. You've got a foot in both worlds. We were joking about like we're living in a world now where we need to stop this bickering about like what's better, DC, Marvel. Oh, let's rejoice that DC is doing great and Marvel's like on the downfall. You know what? That's an ebb and flow that will never stop, and it's going to
Yeah.
happen with everything from Star Wars and Star Trek and so on and so forth. But how does it feel like just being in the midst of all of this? To like, it's kind of just like you're like, hey, and like you said, some of the elements of your stories are showing up in these movies, and I'm sure stuff from the Hulk is showing up and is going to continue to show up. But what's it like being in that world and then seeing kind of like maybe not the discourse, but like just the like seeing how this stuff is translated to the big screen?
I mean, it's amazing to see stuff that I love from the books be translated onto film for a larger audience. I was on a panel recently when they kind of like someone else in the panel was kind of bemoaning the how much more attention the films get than the books because the books are where it all comes from, and the books should get more love and attention, and it should be more get higher readership and all that. And I respectfully retorted that I think that balance is right where it ought to be because I kind of don't want executives all up in my shit all the time.
Right.
Like I like that.
There, it does
With
feel like there's a little more
oh,
freedom as far as the comics are concerned.
a little more. It's like the comics is still, even corporate comics like DC and Marvel, it's still comparatively the Wild West, where you can still come up with these crazy ideas. I mean, there are editors and people, like lots of stakeholders in the process, that whose job it is to protect the properties, make sure that it all stays consistent and everything. That's great. You got to have that. But you can take big creative swings. They, as the creators, they trust us to, do try new things and try, get cool results. Whereas if you're making a film, there's so much money tied
Yeah,
up in it. Everyone's
yeah,
everyone's all up in your business and very controlling, and sometimes to massive detriment of the final product. Like when they, when Zack Snyder suffered that big tragedy, and they handed Justice League over to, um, help me out,
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon, yeah,
Yeah,
to pick it up. The movie apparently that Zach had been working on was quite long, and when Zach stepped away, and Joss came in, I mean the Joss Whedon cut of it clocked in at almost precisely 2 hours,
yeah.
and you could just
You knew.
hear,
Yep.
you could hear the executive, notes coming in, like producer notes, like, yeah, just cut it down to 2 hours, put a bunch of jokes in it.
Right. And we can fit more screenings if we have it down to two
Yeah,
hours. We'll get better deals.
exactly. It's like studies show that Joss Whedon movies make approximately this much
Right.
in the opening weekend, and then this much, blah
Right.
blah blah. So we need to get Joss Whedon to take all the stuff that Zach already filmed and made, and take the script and everything,
Right.
and just make it to a length that like, studies show that audiences like movies of 2 hours or less.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. It's like, put in some Joss Whedon jokes, make it nice and quippy, just like make it just like this other movie.
Mm.
2 hours, go do the thing, and then it turns out into this like
Just
thing that was not.
a mess. Yeah. Total
Yeah,
mess.
yeah. So, it's in comics, they give you ownership they trust you. Like there's more trust, there's more opportunities to do creative stuff. I don't like, if, yeah, it would be awesome if we had, 100 million reads on every issue of comics, but then everyone would be all up in our business. And
That's fair. Yeah.
that's
That's a
not
good
what we
point.
want. So
Yeah.
I'd rather keep it just like it is. And then when they can decide which ideas to use for games or film or whatever they want
But
to do.
also, what's nice is they organically feed into each other. Like, I'm a comic book reader, but like for sure, if there's like I'm a film, I think, if the art form of choice for me has always been film. It's like it would be tough to pick, really. Like if someone was like, you could only like read books, watch movies, listen to music the rest of your life, I'd be like,
Dang.
I guess film. I'd probably do film. I'm imagining for you it would probably be music. What do you think?
Um, that's kind of an impossible choice.
Yeah.
Um, I'd rather not think about it.
Let's not think
I,
about it. So let's
well, I
let's
mean,
say
honestly, if I mean, gun to my head, or gun to other people's heads who I care about
yeah,
more, I guess I would say film, because there is still
you can combine all the
storytelling.
mediums.
Yeah, that's kind of film is kind of where they all come together, or it can be. It's one of the mediums in which they kind of all come together.
Yeah. But this is to say, like, as far as like my excitement for comics and reading comics, like this year for sure, it's been on another level. Like I was telling you, I only just read the Warworld saga in December for the first time, but it's like what's great about it is you see the movie, and the movie is a sliver of what all these comics have to offer. You know what I mean? Like the movie is
Yeah.
it's going to be a great representation. It's going to capture the spirit of all the best stories of that genre. But then what's amazing is like somebody, we talked about it, like, what do you recommend to people coming out of the theater? But I know I am definitely like this, and other people will certainly be like this. They're going to come out of that movie and they're going to be like straight to the comic book store. What have I been missing? Like what other stuff is out there? And
I
what's
hope so.
great about James as well is that he loves this stuff so much. He
Yeah,
clearly
that shows. Yeah.
he wants to live up. Like I was talking, there's an interview coming out with Dan Jurgens that I just did, and I was talking to him about, like, he got to visit the set with a few other creators. You should have been there. What the hell?
I was still in the army.
The army.
I know.
Ah!
It's hard to get
But
away.
It's true. It's true. I say that like I know. Very clearly, you can see the muscles that I've built up in the army.
Don't be
Uh,
like that. You can totally pass for a soldier. You got to shave. That's all.
uh, I just like I feel like there's so much to get this where no, never. That's another story. I don't even remember what I was saying now. What was I saying? We were talking about super. Oh,
Dan Jurgens went to the movie set.
Dan Jurgens went to the movie set, and it feels like Superman and the way James is approaching this. There's always been kind of a separation, and Kevin Feige kind of broke this down a little bit. I think, like he kind of championed the idea of like, what if we just bring the comics to the big screen? What if we have those big team ups? But it feels like it's going to another level where James is like, I grew up reading this shit. Like I know all these issues, I know all these characters, and for him, it feels very much like he loves lifting up comic creators. And that feels very different from what it feels like they kind of all get siloed. Like the movies are their own thing, the comics are their own thing, and they're all off doing their own thing. But it feels like, and I know James has expressed as much as wanting to kind of interconnect everything. I don't know how much I want everything to be interconnected, but I love his love of the medium that is making all of this possible. You know what I mean? Like he lifts creators up in a way that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Have you guys got? I know things like again, these things kind of affect like the wheels sort of move slowly in terms of like how they affect each other. But have you felt that in the time since Peter and James have taken over? Like, has it felt a little bit more like, hey, this stuff feels like a little bit more I feel a little bit more involved, not necessarily making the creative decisions, but I feel like we're all part of a family and a team now
Yeah,
versus like we're
kind
all
of
doing the thing.
like Gunn has like shared some stuff about like, hey, Action Comics 1050, and he would share it,
Yeah.
or I know about certain things that are going to be in an upcoming movie, or we're trying to find ways for books to have synergy with an upcoming thing, or there's just more communication happening.
Mm.
Like as you say, he's lifting stuff up, but also pulling from what we're doing as well. There's a Supergirl comic coming out. Actually, it just hit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think it came out yesterday.
with the new
I think yesterday.
costume and like just everything kind of trying to tie it all together. Now, I'm not saying that like Superman's S shield is not going to be different in the comics to my knowledge, but just just finding ways to kind of tie everything together and make it feel more like a series of tales all being told, you know, by like-minded people, kind of all flying in the same direction.
Yeah. But also that the recognition that you know cinema is its own medium. Comics are its own medium. The stories that are being told have to reflect the medium they're being told in.
Yep.
So it's like we were saying, it's not slavishly devoted. It doesn't need to be slavishly devoted, but it's the recognition. I mean, I was talking about this with my buddy Richie, but like the Richard Donner film, if you look at the comics that were out at the time, the Superman comics and the comics that had come the decades before, the Donner film doesn't really represent what was happening in the comics specifically. But what it does do without question is capture everything about Superman that every different medium, all the different stories had done, and distill it into this very, very uh, precise and effective statement
Right.
that works so well. And so it's kind of like just that reminder of like when you're adapting something, it's great to see the familiar stuff, but you also want to make sure like what is going to be the best story for this medium, what is going to be the best movie version of this, and not
Right.
necessarily getting too bogged down.
Right.
And then that in your case, like for you, that gives you the freedom to kind of be like, well, they're not going to touch on this stuff in the movies. It's certainly not anytime soon, so I can go as crazy as I want. And I
Yeah.
imagine like I know we're still mum on the details, but what's exciting about reading House of L and feeling like, oh, this is just it really is a prologue to clearly something else that you were excited to do, which is now coming in Book of
Yeah.
L. Like that it's cool that you get that flexibility and that freedom to do that.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting, man. I'm really lucky to be part of this stuff, and I don't think any of the, at least none of the best ones, we're not really thinking about how it would translate to other mediums. It's everyone's thinking about how to make the best comics we can, and that's when they turn out right. It's like, again, kind of like that Zack Snyder Joss Whedon thing. Like if they had just been true to either one of those guys, either version of Justice League would have been a better film.
Yeah.
Like you could say the same for the most recent Star Wars trilogy, where they kind of went back and
Yeah,
forth between visions and just pick a lane and commit.
it
Like
is so crucial. Commit to the vision.
I mean, the way that I wrote Warworld Saga, the way all the emphasis I put on the world building and the environment and everything, I think that would. I mean, if that belongs anywhere that's not in comic form, I think gaming is actually where it belongs. Like where you can actually like walk around in it and
Yeah.
just kind of uncover what you want to uncover in that place and all that. I think that's kind of that would. I think that just is more the experience that it kind of feels like just like going back and reading it now, it feels like just it's all about the world that we were trying to make.
Are you a gamer at all?
Yeah, in theory, like I stay real busy,
Well, I
but
was
when
gonna
I
say, I
when I
just
ha- when
started.
I have time to be, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you get a chance, this new game, Clair Obscur
Oh
Expedition
my
30.
God, yeah, I saw yeah, that looks exactly my jam.
Dude,
I've not touched
I
it.
was playing it today, and I was like, I gotta tell Philip about this, but it is amazing.
Awesome.
Like, I love games, but it's one of those things where I'm like, like you said, it's a time suck. So I try to be very particular about what game I'm playing, but like that game immediately emotionally, like it grabs you, and it's just beautiful world building. You would adore it. But like, fair warning, like it may suck you in. So you got plenty of stuff on your plate
Sounds good.
already.
Yeah, I'm busy, but when I do game like things like Elden Ring,
Yeah,
Bloodborne,
yeah,
those
yeah.
kind of stories, like they're like the environmental storytelling is just totally my
This
jam.
feels like I would say it feels like a From Software game, like Elden Ring,
It looks like that. Yeah.
but with more specific story and characters, like with defined story and characters. But what else about the trailer? What else did we? Is there anything else we want to say before we wrap
Uh,
up?
Let me see.
Other moments that you loved, like the eyes up here, buddy, that was great. Flying, like I love, like again the way the flying. We've only seen bits and pieces of the flying, but I love just the idea of like him flying and the camera kind of like, oh, let's catch up to him. Oh, so good.
I'm very excited to see Metamorpho on screen.
Yes,
I grew up with Batman the Outsider, so it's kind of cool to see him in there. Curious how they handle him, and I'm very curious what the deal is with Ultraman. I feel like that's
yeah,
some kind of a head fake. I don't know if they're actually going to put like another Superman in there,
I
or
think so. I
like
think you're right.
surely he's not going to. Well, I mean, maybe who knows, man? Like, is he actually going to be a Superman from another universe like he is in the comics? I feel like he's some kind of a like maybe that in some weird way, maybe the hammer of whatever, or maybe Ultraman is like maybe Supergirl's one of those characters. Like
I think you're right. I think one of these characters, like I think the engineer might be uh like it might be a big reveal, like, oh, she's actually Brainiac, or some there's gonna be some big reveal, like, oh, this character I'm not familiar with is like, oh, well, you're not familiar with that, but like when the mask is removed, look who it is. It's
yeah,
and
if they were to put Superman an evil Superman or whatever inside the Ultraman suit with him covered up head to toe, that's like such. I mean, it's such a huge lift from the boys. Like
yeah, yeah,
if you ever read those
yep,
comics, it would be kind of on the nose. Like I mean, costume and everything, like it would just
right,
be.
right.
So I don't know if they're going to go that way. I'm curious I'm curious who's in that costume, and I'm very anxious to see Metamorpho. And I'm really excited to see Guy Gardner on screen.
Yeah,
Like he's always been like, forgive me, any fans out there, but he's always like my least favorite Green Lantern.
yeah.
But he has a lot of personality, and I'm really curious.
And Nathan Fillion's great.
Yeah, I
Like
can't wait to
he's
see
gonna
him play him. Yeah,
he's gonna bring that perfect, like, you love to hate this
yeah,
guy.
yeah. Yeah. Like the little jerk gestures he makes and everything, like
Yeah,
kind of the flip in his hand and the other
yeah.
thing. But it's just he's gonna nail it. So it'll be really fun to see him on screen.
It's so good. All right. Well, I mean, I'm pumped for the movie. Do you feel like you're more excited? Do you feel like about the same, or do you think this is taking you to the next level?
Um, I'm gonna say increase my excitement has increased a bit. Like I really like the energy of it. I think the casting's all amazing. I love hearing so much Williams music in it. I
Yeah.
love just the energy of it, man. I think it's going to be great. And I can't imagine a time in which it was more important. I mean, I think it's going to be great, but also be hopefully important as
It's
well.
gonna, and you know why I think the moment that really stands out to me is that moment with Superman like hits the pavement, and then you get that the guy like, oh, super, and helping him up and getting him up out of that pit.
Yeah.
I'm like, James James understands it. He gets it. Like this is
Yeah.
like that is like that connection. I remember the shot in Batman v Superman where Superman, like the woman's kind of hold like Superman, like lifting her hand up to him, and he's kind of very distant, and yes, I am your god kind of vibe. Um, and this, I just love the interactions with people. Like
Yeah,
he's on the
there are these little, there are these little things like when he, when the thing explodes and he swoops in and like covers the girl. That's a
yeah
girl, right? There's a girl in
yeah.
that shot. The way he cradles her head and neck is just like he's really being careful to make sure that she's not hurt. I don't know, stuff
Have
like
you,
that, where he doesn't just become like the human shield. He actually like protects her neck.
yeah.
I just little stuff like that, man.
Have
Those
you
little touches go
seen,
such a long way.
there is a discourse right now of there's a shot. Sometimes, sometimes I love and hate the internet. Mostly I hate it, but there's some good stuff too. There's the shot of the kaiju foot coming down and a woman running underneath, and Superman like whoosh, like
Oh,
swoops in, grabs her.
somebody's
And
like, she's dead.
people are complaining. They're like, that woman would be dead. And someone else shared Grant's quote about like, uh, you know what? Like how dumb do you have to be? Like it's all none of it's real.
Well,
They can
exactly.
you can do whatever you want. You
Yeah,
can
his
do
thing
every
about like who changes the tires on the Batmobile or whatever.
right.
Yeah, like who cares? Like yeah, you're right. She would totally be dead. It's not very realistic. Is
It's not
like
very like that guy's flying. Can like somebody actually fly that fast? Is
yeah,
a
you're
kaiju's foot gonna like how big is a kaiju foot really?
exactly.
Yeah.
Assuming we can assume that Krypton was real, Superman's real, the kaiju's
Right.
real, but that woman would definitely be hurt way worse than this.
She'd be dead. She'd be dead. So just
Yeah,
putting that out there. You gotta love the internet. I think.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, like that's the thing too. And then we'll wrap this up. But I think I love seeing the discourse. I think it's funny. But at the end of the day, it's like the movie's not even out yet. Then go see it, and then complain all you want and have that conversation. But I think even though the internet and social media kind of feeds us that negativity a little bit more, I love all the Superman stuff I've been seeing and so much love for this character because, like I said, it's felt like a little bit of a desert wasteland for Superman, and now we're seeing this just so much love and outpouring from fans and artists, like just drawing like their own art and like
Yeah.
contributing to the conversation. I love that, and I like you said, we're living in a time where we need Superman more than I maybe arguably more than any other hero right now is the guy we need to kind of lift us up, and it's good time.
Yeah, 100%. We need that, and plus, when at the end of the day, we're about to get a Superman movie that we can take our kids to.
Yeah, yeah, and we talked about that too. Like it's not a Superman movie if you can't take your kids to it. Like
Yeah,
that's Superman's for kids to me. Like it's like, and that's not to say like childish. Like you can say Pixar movies are for kids. Those are still rich, incredible, emotional
right.
experiences, and some of the best I've ever seen.
That's
So
the
I
thing.
don't.
That's the challenge in writing these kind of stories. You got to find a way to write it that where a kid can read it and be excited to come be bouncing up and down and see
Yeah,
what's coming, but also have all the nuance, the emotion, everything that an adult can also appreciate. Because like
exactly.
so many of the fans are people who grew up with it and still want to love it.
Yeah.
This can't be a Thundercat situation where you go back and try to watch the old show and you're like, damn, this kind of sucks.
Like,
It needs to be something that kids and adults and old people can all like love.
yeah, for sure. Well, this has been great, Philip.
Yeah,
Thanks for
man.
hanging out.
Yeah,
You know
of
what?
course.
This
Thank
wasn't
you.
a bad idea
Yeah,
after all.
see?
I'm now that I enjoyed this, I think I'm gonna take
Yeah,
full credit for it.
good, as you should. Now
Jim,
we're
and
gotta
you're
gotta.
heading to Philly, right? You're going out to the Fan Expo,
I
right?
am, yeah. Fan
Hmm.
Expo, Philadelphia, yeah.
Well, people better go visit you and tell you how awesome you are. And people
Oh,
better. I just pre-ordered the omnibus finally.
oh, dude,
Finally
thanks.
took the
Oh man,
plunge.
you're gonna love it. That map in there alone is so
I'm
cool. And like we've
excited.
got, sometimes in War World Saga you see little clips of Clark's journals while he's up there
Yeah, yeah.
because he's still a journalist, and it felt
I
wrong
love
to
that
have
so
him not. He
such a
needs to
great
be a
idea.
writer. Yeah, he's a writer. Like it's what he was kind of forced into being a fighter by circumstances and where he came from and all that stuff, but he chose to be a writer. And if I were up there, I'd want to chronicle that time. So so yeah, anyway, so there's dozens and dozens of pages of his journal entries when he's up there that we don't see in the page.
I love your passion for that too. Like that world, like just the fact that we're gonna get so much more of that world in that omnibus. I'm pumped. I'm ready for it.
Thanks, man.
All right. Safe
All right.
travels to Philly. Thank you everybody who was hanging out with us. Really, really appreciate it. And then we'll talk soon. All right.
You guys, truth and justice.
Take care.